For record-keeping purposes, if you wish to make a statement regarding any item on the agenda, please complete the form located at the entrance or at the rear of the council chambers and deposit it with the Planning and Housing Commission Secretary. Welcome to tonight's Planning and Housing Commission meeting, and Commissioner Siqueland will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Persons wishing to address the Planning and Housing Commission are requested to state their name for the record. This portion of the agenda is intended for public comment. State law prohibits the Planning and Housing Commission from discussing or taking action on items not listed on the agenda. The Planning and Housing Commission will appreciate your cooperation in keeping your comments brief. Please observe a 3-minute limit to communications. And Ms. Capilla, did we receive any speaker cards or written comments from the public for any items not on the agenda?
No, Chair Woody, we did not receive any speaker cards nor written comments.
Okay, thank you. And actually with that, we will take a moment, and we have a special certificate for Commissioner Siqueland for his previous service as the chair, his extended service as the chair of this group.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. It's been enjoyable, and I look forward to continuing on the commission.
All right, moving on, meeting minutes. This is the approval of the minutes for the Planning and Housing Commission meeting of July 10th, 2023. And Ms. Capilla, did we receive any speaker cards or written comments from the public regarding the July 10th minutes?
No, Chair, we did not.
In that case, do we have a motion for approval of the minutes?
I move.
And do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Commissioner Alexander made a motion, seconded by Commissioner Siqueland. And let's please vote. All right, the motion passes 4-0. Then there is one item on the consent calendar tonight. Consent items are not heard as public hearings and can be approved without discussion. However, does any commissioner have questions or otherwise wish to pull this item from the consent calendar?
I do not.
All right, in that case, Ms. Capilla, did we receive any requests from the public to discuss the consent calendar item?
No, Chair, we did not.
All right. And then is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll motion to approve the consent calendar item.
And do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, item has been seconded by the vice chair. And let's all please vote. All right, the item was approved. The consent calendar was approved 3-1. And moving on, public hearings. Public hearings are items that have been publicly advertised for review and consideration by the Planning and Housing Commission. The first public hearing item is V 2022-0001. It is a request for variance from Section 17.74.130A of the Corona Municipal Code to allow for an off-site pylon for Los Arcos Plaza located at 161 to 191 North McKinley Street. Applicant is Carrie Batris from Inland Sign Incorporated on behalf of CPI Properties. The applicant and staff are recommending that this item be continued to our next meeting, August 21st, 2023. And I wanted to, before a motion, I wanted to ask the director about this item. Do we expect that that continuing it just to the next meeting will be sufficient? Yes? Okay. And then in that case, do we have a motion for this item?
I move to continue.
And do we have a second?
I second.
All right. Motion by Commissioner Alexander and a second from the Vice Chair. And let's vote, please. All right, the motion passes 4-0. And the next public hearing is item CUP 2023-0016, a conditional use permit application to establish a veterinary clinic at 1973 Foothill Parkway, Suite 103, within the commercial designation of the El Cerrito specific plan. Applicant is Chante D. Tran, care of Dr. Tran's Veterinary Clinic, and Ms. Yang, Senior Planner, will present this item. Ms. Yang, are you ready?
I am, thank you. As you indicated, this is a request for approval of a conditional use permit to allow for a veterinary clinic to operate at 1973 Foothill Parkway in Suite 103. The applicant of this request is Dr. Chante Tran. The property is the Foothill Center, which is an existing center that is located off of Foothill, adjacent to the 15 freeway. The property is zoned commercial, and it is within the city's El Cerrito specific plan. The commercial zoning requires approval of a conditional use permit for animal hospitals, and this is the reason for this application tonight. The suite, which Dr. Tran would like to occupy, is located within an existing commercial building, which is situated along the east perimeter of the property, adjacent to the freeway. The commercial center has multiple commercial buildings and a service station and car wash. There are currently multiple access points that provide access to this site. There is one entrance off of Foothill Parkway and 4 located off of Via Gannot Court to the west. The veterinary clinic requires 8 parking spaces per the city's parking ordinance. In total, the entire center, including all the different uses that are currently within the center, require 405 parking spaces, and the center is capable of providing those 405 parking spaces. The suite is 1,611 square feet. The applicant intends to provide routine care for cats and dogs at this location, in addition to preventive care services, such as vaccinations, surgeries, diagnostics, and other small animal care needs. The applicant has indicated to staff that there will be no long-term boarding, nor will there be any critical care services. Any animals that require critical care services would need to be transported to a facility that actually does provide critical care services. And I just want to point out that the conditions of approval require that that there shall be no outside activities as part of this conditional use permit, and that all sanitary waste shall be disposed immediately in order to maintain cleanliness within and outside the suite. And the applicant also informed us that they will be installing insulation within the walls of the suite for sound attenuation for the adjacent tenants. So with that, staff is recommending that the Planning and Housing Commission find the project exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act and adopt Resolution 2613 granting CUP 2023-0016 based on the findings contained in the staff report and the conditions of approval. And that ends my presentation. If there are any questions, I am available, as well as the applicant, who is also present here tonight. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Yang. And before public hearing is opened, and any commissioners have questions for the staff?
I have one question. Is typically a veterinarian care facility required in all instances for a CUP? Or is it just this plan that stipulated that?
Yes, typically when the use is allowed in a commercial zone, we do require a CUP for it.
Oh, so citywide then, all plans? Okay. That was my only question.
I have a question. For the referral facility as a backup, because they will not provide long-term care or critical care, does the applicant have identified those facilities or where they would send a family?
That is a great question. We can have the applicant come up and respond to that.
Okay. Any other questions for staff before the public hearing? All right. In that case, Ms. Capilla, did we receive any speaker cards or written comments from the public other than the ones you've already given me here?
I just added a couple more.
Okay,
No
perfect.
others.
Well, then we will open the public hearing, and anyone wishing to speak can come to the front of the room. And the first speaker card I had is from the applicant, but we don't have to go in order. It would probably be, yeah, let's go ahead and do that then, and we can get our questions asked as well.
Hi, everybody. I am Dr. Shantae Tran. Thank you very much for having me. I'm very much looking forward to being a part of your city. To answer your question, I will be using Corona Animal Emergency Care Center off of Main Street. I already have a relationship with the veterinarians there, so we're pretty close.
I have another question now that you said that. And is there drop-off or pickup? I mean, what's the emergency transport?
Usually we will have the client themselves transport their animals to that facility. They do have ambulance service though if we need, but most of the time the clients are able to just drive their patients. It's like a short distance, like 5 minutes away. So usually they're able to get there pretty quickly.
I've just a quick question following up on that with the emergency clinic. Roughly, what are the cross streets that you said? Main Street, right?
Main Street and, oh, I forget the other one. I know it's Main Street. I just have the building picture in my mind of where it's at. Sorry, I forget the other cross street. Sorry about that.
I had a question. Thank you for investing in the city and interest in that spot down there. I'm glad to hear that there's going to be insulation in the walls. I walked to your soon-to-be neighbors asking for their questions, comments, and concerns.
Okay.
Most were just happy that you're going to be coming into the center.
good.
I guess it's been vacant for a bit, so they're happy to have a neighbor. However, there were some concerns regarding if there is dog barking, for example. Currently, one can hear their other suites,
Okay.
businesses through the walls. So what kind of insulation, can you address that?
I know my contractor, they're used to building vet facilities and centers and things like that. So he has specific insulation that he uses to make sure it's soundproofing between the walls so the neighbors will not hear the dogs barking. He's unfortunately not able to be here tonight, but that's what he does is vet clinics. And so he said he's very, very good at making sure that it's insulated very well. So there should not be any complaints from the neighbors for noise.
Great. My other question was having to do with each of those suites, are they independently ventilation, right? Each suite would be independent because there were concerns about the urgent care, having patients with allergies to for
Animals.
that sort of thing. So the other thing was with the sanitary waste. I understand your staff, if they take a dog, for example, out, they'll go ahead and clean it up. But as the customers are coming up, if you walk that, it's all sidewalk. I mean,
Yep.
there's not an open grass area for them to do their thing before they come in. So even in the back, it's all concrete there. So how do you address that?
I mean, we only have right at the end of the area by where the Charles Schwab is, there's like a little brush area. And then behind my building, there's like trees and brush and dirt. So that's where we're going to plan on using the facilities for the pets. And then I'm also going to make sure that there's clearly marked in my doors and inside the exam and the clinic that, please do not walk your pets, just appointments only, bring your pet straight in here. Staff can handle taking care of walking your pets if we need to, so that we're not going to have pets eliminating on the sidewalks and things like that.
I want to be a good neighbor. I appreciate that.
I don't like when animals, I'm a vet, but I do not like if a neighbor's dog pet poops on my yard. So I use that same courtesy to my neighbors.
Excellent. I appreciate that. And I read in the staff report, it said on rare occasions there would be an animal up to 48 hours, very rarely. In that case, is there staff on site if there's an animal left behind after business hours?
There will not be. We're going to have a live camera action feed, but then also in my disclosures to my patients, that's going to be in writing. If you choose to let your animal stay here overnight, there's no overnight care. That's more so my coercion to get them to transfer to 24-hour emergency.
That's all my questions. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have another question, and that led up to it. So there are times where there may be sort of an abandonment issue just because maybe something happened to the pet owner. So what's your contingency plan
Oh,
with
I
that?
see what you're saying. There should not. I mean, ideally, if they're, if that pet is staying at my hospital, it's usually a pretty stable client. Maybe just had, vomit at one time. Owner's just like, I want you to keep him here, just on IV fluids overnight, just rehydrate him for dehydration. It's not going to be an animal that's I'm worried about crashing or having a respiratory issue, and it's definitely not going to be an animal that there should be an abandonment, because there's going to be a client-patient relationship that they're going to be in the agreement that, yeah, I'm keeping your animal overnight, but you're picking it up tomorrow morning.
No, the question is if in the uneventful demise of the owner, what's your backup plan for that?
Hopefully that doesn't happen. But, in the event, in the California veterinary medical standards, we do have to have a waiting period to see if any family members are going to come forward to claim that animal. If not, then we look for someone to either rescue, rehome the animal, or we go ahead and reach out to animal shelters if there's any abandonment or unfortunate passing away of an owner.
So then that is going to be where, if you're notified or if more than 48 hours passes, that you're going to go with the Main Street location?
Yep.
Ms. Tran, I had a question. I know in your welcome letter you've been practicing for 12 years. Is this your first practice on your own, or?
Yes.
It is? Okay. Great. Exciting that you're pursuing that.
I'm super excited.
I had one other question, please. When I took my dog into my vet, surprised me that the city animal control came with an animal. And so obviously my veterinarian had a relationship with the city. Is that something that all vets consider or no? Or is that an unusual relationship where services are performed on, I don't know, is that a rotation thing? I don't know enough about it. I wondered if you did.
It depends. I mean, a lot of like the animal shelter, animal control, they do reach out to different veterinarians to see if they're able to bring pets in that are, needing care. And they usually do have an agreement with a specific practitioner to say, I'm going to be able to bring this pet here for treatment at like a reduced cost or free of charge.
I see. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, it looks like that's all of our questions here for the applicant. And then in that case, we do have a couple more speaker cards that we will hear
Thank
from.
you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tran.
Thank you all.
And Chair Woody, the cross street is Rincon. Main and Rincon is where that critical care facility is.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Coletta. All right, I have a card here for Joe Morgan.
Good evening, Joe Morgan, 2063 Ren. This is like, to me, this is like Groundhog Day, except not funny. There seems to be a prevailing attitude in the city that, that they're easy to deal with or that processes are easy to go through. Well, it's just what we have to do. This is not an easy process to go through. This is expensive. It takes a long time. I'm sure the doctor's paying some money for this unit right now. The money clock is ticking on this applicant, and there's absolutely no reason why we have to do this process. The staff is absolutely capable of approving this over the counter. Actually, we make the rules. The staff makes the rules, staff makes the guidelines, staff could recommend to the council to change this to lower the burdens for businesses like this. Here's my short list that I've been looking up of veterinary clinics where we already have them in shopping centers. This could be over the counter. If we know, well, installation's required, we could do a conditional use permit over the counter. We don't have to go to a public hearing. We don't have to drag Dr. Tran down here for a dog and pony show and make her jump through all these hoops and cost all this money. We don't have to do this. This is the same thing that happened with the training clinic over by the auto center. This is the same thing that happened with ABC Hopes. We've already approved previous uses that are similar to this in the same zone. We already know that this is compatible. We already know this isn't going to cause an issue. We already know there's issues that we can address. There's no reason to do this. There's no reason to go to the expense and the time and the drama that these applicants have to go through for things that are already established and already well known. There's two of these that are approved within walking distance of this clinic. There's one in Ontario in a strip mall. There's one at Cahalco in a strip mall. This is not fair. It's not right. And we ought to have more care with people's time and money. This is not free. This is onerous. We shouldn't be doing this. We should change the rules. And every single time we have another one of these ridiculous CUP processes go on, we're going to hear about it. And I'm hoping we're going to hear from some more people because the business community, is already sort of put on enough by all kinds of regulations between the states and the feds, and now this. You don't have to do this. So, this process could be easier, and it should be easier. We already know we could do a minor CUP, and we should change the list, change the requirements, and do this as a minor CUP. Let them off the hook.
All right, and then I believe we also, Ms. Capia, have a speaker on the Zoom, on the call.
Yes, that's correct.
And this is Tony Finaldi.
Yes, good evening, commissioners and staff. So I'm with Joe on this one. I live very nearby this property. It's where I get gas every time I need fuel. It's right down the street. I think this is a great compatible use for the center. But like Joe, I agree. This is another CUP that really could have saved a lot of time and money. I'm really curious, and I'll ask the question, probably won't get answered, but I'll ask. What did it cost the applicant to prepare all the documentation for the CUP? The floor plans, the parking analysis, all the required documents that's needed, and the fee that the city charges for CUPs. I really think we need to take a look at these things and make some reasonable decisions on what's really required, what requires CUP and what doesn't. I think this would have been one of those that just didn't need it. That's item one. I have item two. I've reviewed the documents and I don't see in the floor plan or any of the documents where it calls out for additional furring or insulation in the walls. As I understand it, these buildings are already constructed and they're mostly occupied. So this is an infill unit, meaning the demising wall between this unit and the ones next to it are already constructed. I don't know if the gypsum board or drywall on the veterinary side has been constructed or not, but if it has, how is that going to actually get done? Does it get done via furring the wall and adding insulation that way, or do they tear off the drywall and do, I'm just curious. It's not addressed, so just have a curiosity. Anyway, thank you for your time.
Okay, and then with that, we will close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for comments or a motion. As far as comments go, I think the speaker we just heard from kind of touched on something I was wondering about too, which Commissioner Alexander brought up about the insulation. So I wonder if any of my fellow commissioners have any other thoughts or ideas about that.
Well, it's an interesting ask, and maybe the applicant knows more about addressing that. But what I would kind of mirror is the public comment, and that's why I asked the question about the CUP. And maybe it's a future evaluation like we did recently or last year regarding parking ratios. And maybe it's worth an analysis, separate obviously from this application here, but it's worth a review of when a CUP is required. That might be a worthwhile exercise for us to undertake.
I had a question for Ms. Coletta. The difference between the minor and the full COP that comes before us in a public hearing, is the cost the same?
The cost is different, and the minor CUP only requires discretionary review by the Board of Zoning Adjustment and not the Planning Commission. So it's a different review body.
The same documents that had to be prepared for our review, are they the same requirements for the minor?
Yes, the submittal checklist is the same, but the cost is different just because the agenda preparation time and the length of and the amount of work to do the BZA versus the Planning Commission is less.
Okay, so it's to cover staff's time in preparation for the public hearing?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And so this one is not considered a minor, correct? Okay.
And I guess I would ask Ms. Coletta then, is there like a distinction of some sort that staff goes by to determine whether it's a full CUP or a minor CUP?
So we have a series of ordinances that are adopted. You have your municipal code, and you have a variety of specific plans. And all of those have already determined whether the land uses in those plans are either permitted by right and require no discretion review. And then there are uses that are listed as a conditional use permit. So we just go off those documents that have been adopted based on the zoning. So we always check the zoning of the property to see if the use is allowed. And if it's allowed, is it allowed by right or is it allowed by CUP? So we are not arbitrarily making this up as we go along. We actually follow the adopted documents that we have at the city.
And a change to the CMC would fall on council, not on commission.
Right. Well, I assumed that that it was dictated by ordinance, but I guess I'm not entirely clear then about the minor CUP versus the full CUP.
The same thing. So those documents will indicate whether it's a major or a minor CUP.
All right, perfect. Thank you. That makes it very clear to me now. And any further comments from the commission?
If there aren't any, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the
I have
COP.
no further comments.
All right, then it appears we have a motion from Commissioner Alexander. Do we have a second?
I will second.
All right, second by Commissioner Sequeland, and let's please vote. The motion passes 4-0. Next public hearing item is for CZ 2022-0002, a change of zone application to change the zoning from R120 to R1 14.4 zone on 1.59 acres located at 2425 Garrettson Avenue. Applicant is Mohammed S. Baig, care of Ramcam Engineering Group. And this item is related to the subsequent item from the same applicant, which is a parcel map application, PM 37949, to subdivide 4.66 acres into two parcels located at 2425 Garrettson Avenue in the R1 14.4 zone. And for the benefit of time and clarity, the commission is asking that staff provide a presentation for both of these items together, both change of zone and parcel map applications, and then we will ask our questions separately for the two items after the presentation. So, Ms. Yang, whenever you're ready, please.
Thank you, Chair. So the last two items on tonight's agenda are associated with a property located at 2425 Garrettson Avenue. This property is a large 4.66 acres residential estate property, which is situated just south of the Santana Regional Park near Magnolia Avenue. It is in a residential neighborhood surrounded by residential properties all around, and then to the north is the Islamic Society of Corona Norco Mosque. The property is currently developed with a single-family dwelling, which is situated on the western portion of the property, fronting Garrettson Avenue, and the eastern portion is undeveloped. The property has a unique split zone configuration, and what that means is the property actually has two different zoning, which is unique. The western portion that fronts Garrettson Avenue, where the existing dwelling is located, is zone R120. The remaining balance of the property, which is the undeveloped portion on the eastern side, is zone R1 14.4. Both zoning are residential zones. The only difference is that the zoning have different minimum lot size requirement. The property is currently owned by Mr. Mohammed Baig and the Islamic Society, which owns the property to the north. The two owners would like to split the property into two parcels. And the reason for this is because Mr. Baig would like to retain the existing dwelling that is on the property, and the Islamic Society would like to acquire and become the sole owner of the undeveloped eastern portion of the property so that they have an option to expand the mosque in the future. Right now, there are no plans for that, and that will come before you as a separate submittal. In order to achieve this subdivision, the applicant is asking for two things tonight. One is a change of zone, and the other is a parcel map. So the image to the left that shows the current zoning configuration that is on the property. The yellow area that fronts Garrettson Avenue, that's where the existing dwelling is located. So that area is 1.59 acres, and that contains the existing dwelling, and it is zoned R120. The green area on the eastern portion is about 3 acres, and that is zoned R1 14.4. So the applicant is asking to change the zoning of that yellow area from R120 to R1 14.4 in order to match the zoning that is on the eastern portion. And the image on the right side depicts what the applicant is trying to achieve. Under the parcel map, they are proposing to split the property into two parcels. So parcel 1, which is the undeveloped area, that is 2.5 acres. Parcel 2, which contains existing dwelling, is 2.165 acres. And so the reason why the change of zone is needed with this parcel map is because the new lot line that the applicant is proposing, where it separates the two parcels, does not align with the existing zone boundary where the two different zoning exist. And so in order to split the property as shown on that right image, they have to basically rezone the entire property into a single zone. And that is the reason why this change of zone is needed in order to accompany the parcel map. So this is the parcel map that was prepared by the applicant's consultant. This provides the same information that you saw on the prior slide. This is also an exhibit in your staff report as well. This slide here shows the axis that is being proposed for the parcels under the parcel map. Parcel 1, which is the undeveloped area, that will take access from Santana Way through the adjacent property to the north. The applicant has acquired an access easement through the mosque property. And then parcel 2, where the existing dwelling is located, they will continue to take access off of Garrettson Avenue via an existing driveway that is currently already constructed on the property. So with that, staff is recommending that the Planning and Housing Commission recommend approval of the change of zone and the parcel map to the City Council based on the findings contained in the staff report and the conditions of approval, and find that the project is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act. That ends my presentation. If there are any questions, I'm available, and the applicant is here as well to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Yang. And then before we open public hearing, do any commissioners have questions for staff regarding the first item, the change of zone? All right. Ms. Capilla, did we get any speaker cards from the public? I do have one you already gave me. Any further?
No others.
Okay. So yes, then this speaker card is for the applicant. And with that, I will open the public hearing for anyone wishing to speak on the change of zone. And actually, I guess this is not the applicant, but this is Alex Ershaid.
My name is Alex Ershaid. I'm with Ramcam Engineering Group, Inc., and I represent the owner for any of your questions in this regard. And I'm available to you guys.
Question, in the presentation that was provided, there was a comment that the adjacent mosque would potentially have future use of the site. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, the purpose of acquiring this piece of property is for expanding, I believe, the school in the future. But at the present time, we have no development, no have plans, nothing for it. We just want to acquire it so it will become part of the mosque property.
Sure. And the easement that is being requested and granted would be only during the use as a residential parcel, prior to it being converted to other use?
No, because if you see the parcel map, it will become a locked parcel. So we are granted the easement to this parcel as of now, and it's already a recorded easement at 36 feet wide to access the easement for the future as well.
And so the long-term plan would be that would potentially be converted from residential to another usage type?
Yes, for the expansion of the school.
Mm-hmm. For the school?
Yes, sir.
Educational then?
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for commenting. I also have questions on that. The parcel that has that's a vacant lot and the expanded mosque for school is that not is there not another site for a school over by Paseo Grande and 6th?
No, I'm not aware of that. Yeah, no.
All right. My concern is this, is that the and I don't know, maybe you could or the applicant could enlighten me. The services that are held at the mosque are very well attended, and so much so that parking overflows into the park just north there. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you would want to address this or the applicant, but this is my fifth year on the commission, and staff does a very good job of presenting projects to us that are self-sufficient, on-site parking, the function, the operation of whatever it may be, business, school, whatever the case is. And in this case, to my lack of understanding, it isn't self-sufficient on-site as is. So when I hear expand the mosque operations, whether it's school or another type of building, and the mosque currently can't sustain the number of folks who are attending on-site, and it overflows into the park. And there's a consistent manner of approaching these projects, staff, and that comes before us. And we try to be good neighbors and try to, not to say the mosque is not a good neighbor, but the operation staying on site isn't happening. So when I see this other parcel that's going to possibly be used for a school that would have another enlarged attendance, it's not the use for it, it's the lack of space for it. So I would think that this parcel would be used for parking for the existing operations at the mosque, not to expand and extend it further, whatever complications with lack of parking there is. Does that make sense? Or maybe you can comment on that.
Well, I believe that in the future development, when it comes, definitely we're going to be accounting for additional parking to accommodate. And at the same time, I believe I have somebody from the board that can even assist you with that answer
That'll
better
be
than
great.
me on that.
Thank you so much. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
I'll stand by.
Hi, welcome.
Hi, good evening. Hi, Karen. How are you?
Doing great.
Everybody else. My name is Hassan Wasir. I am the ex-president and one of the original signatories to all the construction that happened over there. So I've been here multiple times. Just want to clarify a few things. The expansion of the school is not for additional students, but we already have a school on campus. So we're just shifting over to the other for more, the playground and activities for the children will be moved to that thing. And of course, that's in the plans. Plus, we will have adequate parking for in that area also that will function for the school and also for the overflow parking when we need it. I don't know if you all remember that I was the one who signed the agreement with the city for the use of the parking in the park.
I don't know the terms of that. Could you expand on that a little bit,
it is
please?
basically a mutual agreement where we have opened our parking lot for the people to park when there are games as an overflow parking for the park attendees. And we use the park mainly on Fridays because that's our Sabbath, that's our holy day, Friday afternoon, where usually the park is not being used. So that's the main thing. And a lot of times, the other time we do have the use of the park, extra parking is during the month of Ramadan, as you all are aware of that. Other times we are not using the parking spaces in the park. So it's very limited, but we do have a mutual agreement with the city with understanding that our parking lot is available, and if we can see it, half of our parking for the 4th of July is given to the city, the old park, but the parking lot is open all the time for the attendees for the games or what is happening at the park to park in our parking lot. And of course, our parking lot is very well secured, and we also in the evenings have a security guard, so it's much safer parking for the attendees at the park.
So I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It seems unusual to have this. Is it a verbal? Is it in writing?
No, it was in writing.
Because I don't know of any other project that comes before us that isn't self-sufficient. There isn't this overflow agreement with city property.
That's only for limited use because we are, basically we build the parking lot and the whole structure is built on the recommendation and the number of parking spaces were allotted as per the recommendation of the City Planning Commission. So we build the parking spaces to accommodate our normal use. If you can, if you drive by there any time, the parking lot is pretty much empty. Even during, we have prayer 5 times a day, and if you drive by, the parking lot's not even half full. So it's only the Friday afternoon that we have, fortunately, as you have stated before, a lot of people have discovered our mosque in the city, and a lot of people who are working in the area come and attend.
Sometimes you have 100 cars, up to 100 cars over.
Oh, yes, I do. On the Friday afternoons, we do. And we try to manage that very well. As you can see, that we do have the people doing the security and to make sure that people do not, and we have ourselves recommended if people do, park inappropriately, we advise them, we announce it, and we actually have cars that come in and we recommend even towing them if they are parked improperly. So we try to be good neighbors and try to, do the best we can.
I see. And it might be just on me that I'm not aware of. Perhaps there's other agreements. I'll ask Ms. Coletta to share if there's other churches that do the same. I'm just not familiar with it. So
I don't know.
appreciate the
I
explanation.
think Crossroads might also have overflow parking across in the parking spaces sometimes. I'm not sure, so I don't want to
I've seen them park
venture
on
there.
the street. I don't see
Yeah,
quite the overflow
Yeah,
that
there's
happens.
parking on the streets for sure, but I don't know. Some park in there or not, but I don't want to venture there because, of course, we will encourage them if they need the parking spaces. Anybody can park in our parking lot also.
I didn't have all the information, so I thank you for that.
Are you welcome? Anything else I can answer?
Mr. Ershad, is that the right
No,
one?
this is Ershad.
Mr. Ershad, yeah. Is there a reason that at this venture in time you did not also request to rezone the future lot to a different land use type to support the school? Instead, you're just rezoning, you're keeping it residential.
Well, I believe the use of a mosque or religious facility is allowed in the 14.4 zone, and I will maybe ask Ms. Yang can elaborate on that.
That's correct. So the R1 14.4 zone allows for religious institutions by approval of a CUP. So when they are ready to expand the mosque in the future, they will have to come back and modify their existing CUP, and that will come back before staff will review for compliance with all applicable codes and requirements. That will likely come back before the Planning and Housing Commission as well.
Great, thank you. That was my second question, so we're covered.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Okay, and then we've received one more speaker card for this item, and if,
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Al-Shaid. If the last speaker would come to the podium, Mr. Conrad Padilla.
Hi there. I think, Craig, you and I have talked a few times. I'm at 2511 Rosser Drive. I think we've spoken a few times. I didn't know a lot about it till right now, really, but I'm talking about a few of my neighbors, and we're at 2511 Rosser Drive, which is near there. I do have some concerns because they're talking about I know they're talking about it now, but they're talking about building houses on Garrettson at some point, that there's a big vacant lot there. Along with the expansion of this, I mean, I think it's going to be crazy with respect to traffic. If they're talking about expanding in the future, the mosque and whether it's the school or whatever the case may be, I do have some concerns because if we look at Garrettson and we look at Santana right now, I mean, it can't really. It's a mess now, and I think with expanding it, because it sounds like that's really the goal. Down the line, it sounds to me like they really do want to expand the mosque more. That's kind of the goal. I mean, that's what they're saying. Not now, but I think in the future. So I do have some concerns with respect to anything that creates more traffic. I also did not know that there was something set with the city with respect to us parking in there, and then vice versa. I've never heard of. I mean, I've been here for 30 years and never heard of something like that. So I do have some concerns with respect to expansion of the mosque, and so do a lot of the neighbors around me. So, thank you.
Okay, and it looks like we are having one or more speaker cards being submitted currently.
So I also live in the neighborhood, and I did know about the reciprocal parking agreement. It's been fairly common knowledge. Anytime the subject of the mosque comes up, the parking agreement comes up. So one of the cars has been parked there for different events has been ours. We live right around the corner, and we drive over there, and it really hasn't really seemed to have been a problem. And honestly, it's a good use of resources. Some of the problem with development anymore is that we have a lot of space allowed for cars, and a lot of the times those spaces are unused. So if you have a compatible use where you know, at one time the park is more busy in the evening and the mosque is busy in the afternoon. There's no reason to have two separate parking lots, and one's going to be empty at one time, one's going to be empty at another. It's a perfectly good, reasonable use. As far as the density proposed for this, you know, it's R1-14-4, and the parcels aren't that big, so you can do the math. It's only going to be a few houses. I don't really think that, you know, 5 houses is really going to significantly impact that, you know, Garrettson or Santana. You know, it's really not that the possible impact from this parcel, even divided, is not significant. What could be significant is the large parcel next to it, because they're talking about building something more dense, you know, and, you know, there's proposals to build something a lot more dense than R1-14-4, which is, you know, it's almost like you know, for Corona, that's almost an estate at this point. So I want to speak in support of this. Thank you very much.
All right, yeah, thank you. Please go ahead, sir.
Mohammed Beg, and I am the applicant here. The 2 points at this time, the future construction, that's another hearing altogether. Now, at this particular time, you're only talking about rezoning and reparceling. But that parcel, the use of that parcel is a completely different hearing. Just wanted to point that out. They probably will have school, the parking that's associated with the school will probably alleviate some of the issue that we're talking about, because that is a large land, 2.5 acres, so hopefully they will have more parking assigned when the school is built. So at this time, that aspect of the land, the use of land, is not at question at this time. At this time, it's only rezoning and reparceling. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Begg. And if you don't mind, since you are the applicant, I have a quick question.
Absolutely.
I think I read this in the report, but are you the sole owner currently, or the mosque?
We are joint owners.
Okay.
Yes.
And so the goal is to rezone it so that you can split the parcel.
Yes.
And you would be sole owner of one parcel, and the mosque would be
Owner of the
sole
other
owner
parcel,
of the
and they
other.
will take care of the maintenance and everything and answerable for their aspect or their side of the parcel.
Right.
And I
Okay.
have been waiting for this for almost 5 years now. But due to COVID, we had to move it all the way at
Sure.
this time. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. If we have no more questions for the applicant, then we will bring this back to the dais for comments from the commission.
Well, I do want to talk about the, I understand that this is just splitting the parcel and the zoning. I understand that. I do want to be sensitive to the fact that when Warmington came and put on a couple of community meetings, and the residents came out in volume against the proposed condo, the density build that those are their terms that they were using, that they were entitled to build this just north of half-acre homes along that first residential street. And so it does impact the area, and I think they were very vocal as to wanting to have a project that matched the current surrounding areas. On the west side of Garrettson is half-acre, acre lots going all the way down, not so much on the east side where they're 7.2, 7,200 square feet lots. I think that's actually an anomaly. If you take the entire stretch south of Santana all the way down to Chase, those are very large estate homes. They purchased them, sometimes it's generational. They've been there forever. So they don't want to see a high-density condo project come through, and they were very vocal on, and I went to both of those meetings. This particular one, I understand the applicant wants to split the lot and the one single house go from 2.0 to 14.4 so that it's compatible and they could split the two. What it did in my mind was it set up the precedent of here we're dropping down to a lower density, and that would trigger the residents' feelings and as far as wanting to keep the neighborhood consistent with what's going on. So 14.4, it's still a large lot. I do have concerns. I will be watching for future proposals coming forward. I'm a big fan of all the work that staff does to get these projects to be self-sufficient, staying on the lot so that it doesn't overflow and negatively impact the surrounding neighbors. So that's for a future. I don't have a problem with the applicant being able to retain the west lot and have it go to 14.4. You know, that on the outside, if that property was to be sold and the Islamic Society decides to sell theirs and not keep it within, that's something that's outside of our control. Not seeing Wilmington and these two lots becoming one for a project coming forward. So that was my hesitation, is wanting to be consistent with all our other projects, that they be self-sufficient on the lot. And I thought this to be a chance to take that east side lot and make it parking to address the overflow of sometimes up to 100 cars coming over to the other side. And I understand that this was a previous agreement, so I appreciate the explanation.
Yeah, I understand you. I like your point about being a self-contained operation. And it's interesting, I didn't know about the reciprocity agreement, but it seems like an interesting way that they solved some of the parking. I do find it beneficial that we have current parcels that are of an odd shape, that are basically incomplete parcels, left over from a previous owner that never even exercised the TTM and let it lapse. So from this standpoint, the application makes for clean parcels and zones that don't exist. And I was looking through the documentation about the parcel map. There is a requirement that Garrison would be, I believe, upgraded with curbs and sidewalks as part of the parcel map. So I know there were comments about the fact that Garrison was a minor, referenced it as a local roadway. So I like that fact, that is a stipulation for the agreement under the parcel map. I guess in summary, I think having the change of zone that addresses some improperly documented parcels is an important measure. I do actually like to see everything at once, so it's unfortunate that if there's a future plan in place that may include a CUP, in my opinion, I like to see those together, because then you know the whole narrative. But that is the applicant's prerogative to address it that way, and I can't really weigh in on that. So.
Okay. I guess we've finished comments from the commission. Is there a motion for us to consider?
I will put a motion on the change of zone, the CZ 2022-002, recommend for approval.
All right, do we have a second? All right, Vice Chair Vernon seconded the motion, and let's please vote. Okay, motion passes 4-0. And then we will move on to questions regarding PM 37949, the parcel map application. And anyone on the commission have questions for staff?
I just wanted to ask Ms. Coletta, actually, regarding the agreement with the mosque in the city. Is perhaps, I just don't know, how many other agreements like this are there?
I'm not aware of any other agreements, and the agreement that the Islamic Society has with the city is with the parks. At the time, it was the Parks and Recreation Department, and that's who they struck the agreement with. So it's been I think almost 20 years that they've had that agreement. Yeah.
Okay.
I had a staff question. It kind of goes in line with the Garretson Avenue work. And if I I'm trying to recall the western side of Garrettson. Is that undeveloped? Is it non-curbed, non-sidewalked currently?
Yes, we believe the west side is not developed.
All right, and then so if there were future development in the larger lot next to the lots shown in the application, then obviously Garrettson Avenue would be evaluated for increased width and capacity. Is that fair to say?
Are you referring to the large lot to the south?
Yes, thank you.
They would be required to develop the east side of Garrettson Avenue adjacent to their project frontage.
Mm-hmm. And at any point, would the western side of Garrettson ever be required to have curbs and gutters and upgraded?
No, I don't believe so, because it's not adjacent to their project.
'Cause it's not.
Correct.
Yeah, so normally when you see your conditions of approval, it's always half street plus 10. And so they do not do the other side. Those are pre-existing homes. You know, they were there before South Corona was master planned. So back in its farming, era. So if the homes were to ever to do a large expansion above 650 square feet, they would be required to do the improvements, or we would defer the improvements until all the improvements are done at one time, but they would have to upfront the cost. So we have ways of looking at that in the future.
Okay.
Oh, that opens up my question then, Ms. Coletta. So when we're looking at other projects and we hear the city moving forward with improving the south side of Ontario at Lincoln, and though that's the way it was for so many years, where those the right-of-way was just not improved at all, and now possibly being looked at being done. Is that at the expense of the city or the homes? Because they're not improving 600 square feet, right?
That was a CIP project that we undertook, and I don't know if each person over time participated in those frontage improvements, but those were pre-existing homes. And then as South Corona developed, all the development started to go around it. And given that it's so close to Lincoln, it was a situation where Public Works needed to take action in order to improve the circulation and to prevent any kind of dangerous traffic incidents.
Okay.
So I don't know all the facts, but it was a CIP project, and I couldn't tell you for sure if some people had paid into that or not.
And what's the likelihood of the west side of Garrettson being improved for CIP?
I think it's going to be a very minimal likelihood, given its nature of its design with the homes on that side. It's not a high-volume street like Ontario is.
Well, it's not, it may not be high volume like Ontario, but with these public meetings that came out, the residents were very concerned about the amount of traffic and the speed of which they were going. So maybe that's a future.
That, I wish I had an answer. I don't, but that's a Public Works. They assess those, and so I don't have an answer.
I understand that. Okay, thank you.
Just one clarifying then. So I know we're just guessing what the future might be, but those two large parcels to the south do have the potential for a large number of homes or multifamily residential. And if that were to put in a greatly increased capacity onto Garrettson, then that analysis might require that the developer of that property increase Garrettson or improve it, even beyond just half the street, right?
We do the nexus, then there's always a nexus. We just can't arbitrarily say a developer is going to do this. There has to be a tie to their project and their responsibility of fair share. That's what we have to do. To say it's going to be multifamily, no, but to say that if they want to exercise density bonus and get more single families, that could be a situation that they've looked at. But is that enough to warrant that they go ahead and do more of what they're needed? No, because you still have to make sure everything is in alignment and not have one side of the street be wider, but at least one side would still be in alignment because we have new development to the south that's already taken care of it. This is the remaining section that has not been completely widened except for next to the mosque.
Yep, okay.
So much like Chase and the telecommunications tower, and they're going to improve and widen that portion down to Chase. Okay, thank you. Oh, and I did want to have one clarifying question. So the east side parcel is already zoned R1 14.4. So whatever land use is available, it is what it is. We're only, the rezoning part was the west lot anyway.
That's correct.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
And I wanted to ask Ms. Coletta then, just since the discussion was there, for these undeveloped, unimproved, I guess, streets or parts of streets, I know like the council had a discussion regarding Orange Heights at one point. So if the owners aren't paying for it, sort of like the Ontario, the city can determine that it's in the, you know, the interest of the city at large to make those improvements? Is that what the CIP process was that you were referencing?
Yeah, that's what capital improvement looks at.
Okay, good. Thanks for the clarification. And Ms. Capia, did we receive any speaker cards or written comments from the public regarding PM 37949?
No others, Chair.
Okay. Well then, public hearing is closed and we'll continue discussion here among the commission, or we will entertain a motion.
The only thing I would tag on to my other comments, which were related to this, I actually was thinking about it. It wasn't beneficial that the applicant did inform us of what their future intention was for the parcel. I know in past applications, that has not always been the case, and we're guessing about what may happen. And in this case, the applicant has said that they do have a long-term plan that's part of developing the property. So I want to acknowledge that and thank that.
And I'll add to that. I just want to thank the applicant for considering the parking in the future to help offset the north side and the parking. Just a comment is I've had a couple of folks speak up to say that there is a crossing walk there, but sometimes it isn't used. And just for the safety of the congregation, perhaps remind the members that it's for their safety to use the crossing walk versus just randomly cross the street from the park. Thank you.
All right. Any comments from the vice chair? All right. Then with that, I will make a motion to approve this item. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Please vote.
My screen is blank, so I'm going to vote manually.
Commissioner Vernon, how do you wish to vote?
Yes. Yay?
Thank you.
Okay, the motion passes 4-0. And written communications. Has the Planning and Housing Commission Secretary received any written communications from persons providing information or seeking action by the Planning and Housing Commission?
No, Chair, we have not.
All right, very good. And report from the director, Ms. Coletta, anything for us?
I have no items to report, but I did notice on future agenda items, we don't have anything listed, but we do have items for the next meeting that will be coming before you. So please do anticipate the hearing for the next meeting.
All right, and then any... All right, thank you very much. All right, and any commissioners, any planning and housing commissioners, any matters to discuss?
Yeah, I actually think that it may be beneficial to make a recommendation, committee recommendation to City Council to review some of the approvals that we do have before us. In this example, the CUP discussion we had earlier. And I know there's others, I can't think of all the different types of classifications we've had come before us, where it seemed to be excessive amount of time for such approval. So I don't know if any of my peers would be interested in at least discussing that. I may be recommendation to council that be evaluated, much like we've done with the parking ratios and such as those.
I agree. I would be open to making that recommendation. And if there's any type of input further in detail as a subcommittee or whatever, I'd be interested in doing that. I mean, we talk a lot about the businesses in town, and we need to support them, and we want to make their investments valuable. And if there's a way to streamline it any other way, I'd be open to that.
Ms. Coletta, would that, it sounds like what the commissioners are saying is they would like to potentially review maybe the ordinance, how the ordinance determines which uses are a minor CUP versus a major? Am I understanding?
That's directionally correct. And other, not just in CUP cases, I think there's other times we've had other potential applications, whatever they may be, where it seemed to be very large scale for what was part of the application. So I think maybe starting with the CUPs could be an example of that.
Do you have any ideas on how we may or may not want to proceed on that?
I can tell you an assignment of that nature would need to be authorized by my boss, who's the city manager. Anything that requires more than an hour of staff time is under his discretion. Given, the extent of work that we have in responding to daily needs of the public, we have a high demand in our department. So if something like that is to be explored, it's something that's considered by them. And then the timing is when city staff can really devote time to that. Mm-hmm. And again, that call comes from the city manager, not from me.
And just for the record, I believe you have 4 positions open under planning and for jobs available with the city. So there's a lack of staff, so.
Okay. I guess one comment I would like to make is maybe I could ask for an update at our next meeting, regarding the with the pylon application coming back in front of us. I know there was a discussion about the other billboard, the Miguel's billboard, that had happened at the previous meeting when the city attorney was here. If there's a way to update the commission at the next meeting, I would appreciate that too. And then in that case, if everybody's made all their comments they want, then I guess we will adjourn the meeting. And the next meeting is scheduled of the Planning and Housing Commission, scheduled for Monday, August 21st, 2023. Thank you.